Good evening, and welcome to our monthly Rotary Foundation Matters webinar series. Let's start with some housekeeping items. Please note this session is being recorded. We will share the recording and slides following the webinar. Closed captions are enabled. If you haven't already done so, please select your preferred language from the menu at the bottom of the screen. We will have time for questions. Please put your questions in the Q&A box, not the chat box. And finally, we want to make sure we know who you are. So take a moment right now to type your name, club, and district into the chat box. Now let me introduce myself. I am Bernie Rydell, Regional Rotary Foundation Coordinator for Zones 33, and I will moderate this webinar. Also joining us this evening is the Endowment and Major Gifts Advisor for Zone 34, Dave Rao, who will moderate the Q&A segment of our webinar. Tonight, we will discuss Goal-Setting Greatness, Guide Your Rotary Club to Success. You will hear an informational presentation about the RI Action Plan, followed by two club leaders with strategies and tips for how they use setting goals to encourage giving and engagement with the Rotary Foundation in their clubs. Now, I'd like to introduce past District Governor George Robertson Burnett. George is the Zone 34 champion for the RI Action Plan and also the chair of the Membership Action Plan for both Zones 33 and 34. You will quickly notice George's Scottish accent, but I assure you he is a Rotarian in the Rotary Club of Bartow in Florida with District 6890. George, the virtual floor is yours.
Hey, thank you so much, Bernie, and thank you for the invite to be here. Some of you who know me or even don't may be wondering why a membership guy is on a foundation webinar. Well, we have to work together to get the best out of our Rotary experience. The way I like to put it is we have to grow more, to do more, to tell more. And that's made up of the three components, membership, foundation, and public image. So I want to start tonight by telling you that good things come in fours. Here's some examples here, like our seasons, except coming from Scotland, I have to tell you, we only have two seasons. They're called July and winter. Another thing that's good in force is a four-leaf clover, because if you ever find them, that's absolutely great. And if you're as old as I am, you'll remember the Beatles, another great thing that came in fours. We won't mention the four horses of the apocalypse, of course, because that would, well, hey, the exception proves the rule. So how about Rotary? There are some very good things come in fours. How about this? These four gentlemen that actually started this whole the ball rolling. Amazing to think. Where would we all be tonight if those four guys hadn't got together? Probably not on this webinar. Yeah, it's worthy of thought. And of course, there is the four-way test. We say it every week, and but one of the things that we tend to forget is that is it's four questions. It's not four commands. It's not instructions. It's actually just four questions. And we'll come back to that a little bit later. So as Bernie said, I'm also the Zone 34 Rotary Action Plan champion, and that is the subject I want to talk to you about tonight. And there it is. And you notice four circles. So why has it got four circles? It actually has been around for a while, as you're possibly aware, but it's gained new impetus because one of the birthers of the Rotary Action Plan, Stephanie Urchick, is of course now our Rotary International President. And just on a local note for those in Florida, Cindy Covington was also very instrumental in creating this. So what are these four components? So we have four words that go with the four components: impact, reach, engage, and adapt, which as words are very, very strong, and we probably need to develop them a little bit further. So here we go. This is probably a more traditional way of looking at the action plan. So what about increase our impact? What Rotary says that's about is eradicating polio and leveraging the legacy, increasing the focus on programs, improving our ability to achieve and monitor the impact we have. So how about enhancing participant engagement? Well, what Rotary says that's about is that we should ask, listen, and involve. Very, very important to ask our members what they expect out of Rotary so that we can deliver on their expectancy. Supporting clubs to better engage their members and offering new opportunities, personal growth and creation. You think it's particularly good for young members coming in, but it's good for all. How about expanding our reach? And what Rotary says about that is we increase club flexibility and appeal, create new ways to experience Rotary, develop innovative projects with community outreach. Community outreach is so important. You know, if you're in business, you actually have to think of our communities as our sales areas, because that's where our members come from. And the last element is increase our ability to adapt, which is, as far as Rotary is concerned, creating a culture of research and innovation, streamlining governance structure to stay agile, and embracing positive new developments and technology. So that's what Rotary looks at the Rotary Action Plan and says it's all about. But what about us? How can we use this as a guide to achieve great things? Well, I'm sure you've heard we are people of action, and we prove it all the time, that's for sure. But what do people of action actually need? Yeah, they need an action plan. It's so important that we actually plan for our success. And if we're people of action, that's exactly what we should be doing. So, the important thing to recognize is that the Rotary Action Plan is not a ready-made plan for us. It's a tool to guide us to our plan by getting us to ask the right questions, which will lead us to the best answers. So how do we do that? The three considerations when working on goals for a plan are back to where we were: foundation, public image, and membership. When we ask the right questions and blend all three of those aspects, one thing's for sure, we will end up with a very, very vibrant club. So these are the three aspects that we need to work on. So how do we apply the Rotary Action Plan to this? So if we have those three together and we have those the three disciplines plus the RI Action Plan, but you'll notice that the RI Action Plan has been adapted a little bit because just like the four-way test, we've now changed it into 4 questions. How do we increase our impact? And et cetera, et cetera. Now, when we apply each of those questions to the 3 disciplines, it will lead us not only to a very, very robust plan, but it also be a plan that aligns with Rotary International's action plan. So this is a great way. I mean, you can split the club into 4 and ask them to each go away with one of these, etc. There's different ways to do it, but the action plan is more for us at club level and district level. It's a method of asking ourselves, how do we achieve these things and reaching a plan as a result. So since we're on a foundation webinar, we should look at foundation goals. So when we look at these, first of all, when we're setting a goal, we should set financial goals. How much money are we going to send to the various funds? There are also numeric goals, for Paul Harris Society members, etc. We should set a numeric. Project goals. One thing that's absolutely known is that projects are such a spur to membership, and not only new membership, but our existing membership. A lot of people join for fellowship and all that, but it's our projects that inspire them to stay. Partnership goals. Who should we deal with Who should we partner with to create these great projects? And fundraising goals, we all have to raise some money. Or are we going to have $1 million dinner, for instance? That's all part of goal setting. And the other thing that I would like to mention to you is resource goals. There are so many resources given to us by Rotary International at every level, within the district, within zone and at RI. Building those into your plan, like making sure that someone's on this webinar every month, build that into your plan. We should have someone learning those. So I just wanted to give you an introduction to the Rotary action plan and its possibilities for creating goals. I'll now hand this off to Marie Turnbull, who is the Rotary Foundation Chair for the Rotary Club of St. Augustine Beach in District 6970, Florida. Marie will share some tips and ideas for setting foundation goals in the Rotary Club Central. Over to you, Marie.
Thanks, George. Like George said, I'm Marie Turnbull of the Rotary Club of St. Augustine Beach, and I'm here to tell you how and where you can set goals. Now, first, why do we set goals? Well, goals help us provide a roadmap for impact. They motivate our club. They build a culture of generosity and commitment. They help clubs measure progress and celebrate successes. Next slide. When should we be setting our goals? Well, ideally, you need to be setting your goals prior to going to pets, but better late than never. And remember, you can always update your goals anytime during the Rotary year. Okay, so where do I set my goals? Well, you set your goals in Rotary Club Central. So you want to go to rotary.org and log into your account, and then select My Rotary, and in the second column, select Rotary Club Central. The first thing you want to do when you get to Rotary Club Central is to make sure you are looking at the appropriate year. By default, it will be the current Rotary year. If you're wanting to set your goals for 25-26, you will need to arrow over and change to the new year. Also, by default, you will see all goals. If you just want to work on foundation goals, select Increase Our Impact. Next slide. Note the Show Goal details and history under each goal. This gives us the ability to see goals and accomplishments for the past 5 years. This information is so helpful in determining the new goals for your Rotary year. When analyzing your history and you see you've always been exceeding your goals, it might be time to challenge yourself. Also remember to talk to your board and your club members, as maybe there is someone out there planning to go big and you will want to enter that information. Once you're ready to start setting goals, check the Select Goal and enter your goal in the box. The checkbox are for the goals your club plans to work on. If you're not planning on having that goal, do not put a checkbox there. At a minimum, we want foundation goals set for annual fund giving and Polio Plus giving. Next slide. When you have finished entering all of your goals, remember to hit the Save button up on the top left-hand side. You don't want to be losing your work. Next slide. So the next question might be, can I change my goals? Well, life happens and there's no Rotary police going out to come get you if you don't meet your goal. But again, if you are exceeding your goals year after year, consider increasing them, as it does help inspire others. Next slide. Let's make an impact. Let's aim high, inspire your club by tracking your progress, and celebrate your successes, because every donation to the Rotary Foundation helps us do good in the world. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Kay Davis for the Rotary Club of Sumter Sunrise in Zone 34. Kay will share an example of how her club sets foundation goals.
Thank you, Marie. You've just heard from Marie how important it is to setting those foundation goals. It's really critical to having a successful year. So how do you decide what those numbers are going to be? As George said, we have to set numbers. Marie talked about how you could gather some of your data from Rotary Club Central to see what you have done. Another resource for gathering your historic and current data is to look at the reports, the foundation reports that are also available through My Rotary. The first of these is the club fundraising analysis, and again, gives you a good history of what you've done with the annual fund over the past 5 years. So that's one place to start. Then the monthly contribution report is the next one that you might would look at. So next slide, that one. And this is just a little snapshot. My club is the Sumter Sunrise Club, so I'm showing my club's data. And you can see, and this is at the end of March, what our annual fund goal was for this current year. We've reached 91% of it at this point. And then our per capita, and then our annual fund year to date. Also, we look down and we can see the polio, and there's a polio plus report that this is a snippet from. The club fundraising analysis, the monthly contribution report, and the polio plus report are available through My Rotary under the foundation reports section there. After you've looked at all your sources for the historical giving for your club, as Marie said, you've talked to current members, you know sort of what some of them are thinking. And in my district sets expectations. So if yours does, look at those expectations as well. Then the club foundation chair, the club president, sit down together. They do it over a cup of coffee or over email, however they do it, and talk about what are realistic goals for the coming year. And so I'm going to show you what the process looks like in my club, because right now we're in the midst of doing that. We're in our district, we've been waiting until after PETS to get this done. So at a minimum, when I'm looking at the goals, my district has set an expectation of $225 per capita for each club and annual fund, and $45 per capita for each club to Polio Plus. I want to make sure we're going to do at least that. And as you see on this form, that's the average per member for annual fund. That reflects the district expectation, but that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to fill in a form with my own numbers. So you have that slide. Now, it looks like you've got the blank slides. I'll just go ahead and talk through the numbers I'm going to put in on these slides. I'm going to put in $300 per member, and we're currently at 11 members. So I'm going to exceed the $225 per capita, but I need a basis for doing that. And I do have a basis for doing that. All 11 of my club members are giving at least $100 a year. So that's going to be $1,100. And the club has several Paul Harris Society members that give at least $1,000 a year. So that's going to make up the difference. So I know that we should be able, if all follows through as planned, to meet that $330 per capita. And so that's what the goal I'm going to set for annual fund. Then for polio, the expectation is $45 per member. Well, I've got several Polio Plus Society members that are giving at least $100 a year. And so I know I'm going to get at least $500 from those 5 members, which is going to then put me over the $45 per capita. So I'm going to set a $500 goal for that, hoping to exceed it, but I'm going to set that. On both the annual fund and the polio goal, as the club foundation chair, I want to exceed those goals, but I'm going to put in achievable goals that also stretch us a little bit, and then we'll try to stretch us even more. When we get to the endowment fund and the major gift goals, we're a very small club. most members have been a member of this club for a lot of years. So I sort of know what I can expect from these members in terms of significant gifts. And while I'm working on some behind the scenes and hope to cultivate a few more, I'm actually going to set zeros for each of these 3 goals. And that's okay. Doesn't mean I'm not going to work on trying to add some, but the expectation is that I won't. And I'm going to admit that up front and just put zeros in. Setting these goals, even enter them into Rotary Club Central, they're very important. But even more important is what's your plan for meeting the goals? You need to have your strategies in place as you're setting your goals. If not, you very quickly need to develop strategies for meeting those goals. And then you need to monitor your progress toward achieving those goals. And there are multiple ways you can monitor progress. You can look back at those same reports you were looking at for history to get current data, especially the monthly contribution report and the Polio Plus report. Your district foundation chair is probably sending you information along the way, encouraging you, offering help as you do that. So set your achievable goals, make them at least a little bit challenging. As Marie said, change them during the year if you need to, as life changes, either for the good or for the bad. And then develop those strategies you need to reach them and monitor all your progress. And that will help you have a very successful foundation year. I'm going to now turn the program over to Dave Rao, our endowment and major gifts advisor for Zone 34. And Dave's a member of the Rotary Club of Mid-Bay Bridge and District 640 at Florida, and he will be moderating the Q&A. So Dave?
Thank you, Kay, very much. You all did a very good job, all 3 of you. And we have some interesting questions that we'd like to, the audience would like to ask of you. And so I'd like to start with my most favorite speaking American, George. George.
Yes.
Are you okay? So asking the 4 questions for each of the 3 disciplines, membership, public image, and foundation, wouldn't this cause us to have an overlay, complex, and lengthy plan?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and it could actually happen that way. What we have to do is we can ask the questions, but when we get the answers, we have to prioritize. We have to think what's most important, because if we over complex our plan, then we'll probably be planning to fail. So it's a case of choosing the best aspects. But when we ask the questions and we get the answers, we put some of the answers aside for next year. We can revisit it. So we hone down the plan to what is achievable. But rest assured, when you ask these questions, it starts such a great conversation within the club. So we don't want them to thwart the conversation, but then you have to be selective so that the plan isn't overly wieldy.
Thanks, George. That's a great answer for that. Marie, you're up next. What would you recommend for a new club or one that has no giving history? How should they set their first goals?
Well, I think as a club, they need to, especially a board, have that discussion together. If they've got some people that have made some commitments, they can utilize that as a guideline. Maybe the club itself has guidelines or commitments they want for every member.
Thanks, Marie. That's really good. Thank you. And for Kay, what do I do if I can't get access to the foundation reports available on my Rotary?
Well, the first thing you do is to make sure that you check with your club secretary. You need to be into the Rotary International database as the club foundation chair or the club president. If all else fails, go to your club secretary or some other member in the club who has access, or go to your district Rotary Foundation chair and ask him or her to help you to learn how to do this and to get you those reports that you need.
Thank you very much for that. George, back to you. Can you give us more information regarding partnership goals? That's a good question.
Yeah, sure, David. As far as partnership goes, we can have a passion to do something, but we don't always have the expertise to do it. And so that shouldn't stop us from actually following that passion. We should just actually hunt out those partners who can help us achieve what we're passionate about. Give you a quick example, and I'm sorry it's about my own club, but we do an adoption picnic. Now, I mean, we put on a fabulous picnic for kids that are looking to be adopted and for families that are looking to adopt. But obviously, we don't have the expertise in procuring the kids or the families. So we partner with Heartland for Children, and that's a great partnership. So looking for those partnerships to achieve your passions.
Thank you very much, George. Great answer. Let me go back to Kay here. How do I set appropriate per capita goal if my district has not set expectations for my club?
Well, you go back to one of the things Marie was showing. Look at your history. What have you been doing per capita as a club? Try to set your goal for the coming year at least a little bit higher than the highest you've ever done. Give yourself a challenge that should be achievable, or at least set it as high as what you've done, if not a little higher. So again, look at your history is a good answer to help figure out what a goal should be.
Very good. Thank you for that answer. Let me go back to Kay. How do I set appropriate per capita goal? What do I do if my club does not have a recent history of supporting foundations and contributions?
That's an exciting time to be in because you can lay new groundwork. You can set a new standard for your club. Again, I hate to keep saying the same thing, but history is so important. Look back and see if you've had any years in which you were at least a little bit successful. If not, talk to your board, talk to some key members who have leadership in terms of respect of other club members in your club. Ask them what they think should be a realistic expectation to start, and start small if you need to. Any goal you set, if you set your strategies to achieve it, and then you do, you've had a success and have something to build on for future years.
Thank you, Kay. Very good. Marie, back to you. Can I change my goals after they are entered?
You can. Things happen. Maybe you ended up with someone who won the lottery, and all of a sudden they decide to give a whole bunch of money to the Rotary. Wouldn't that be great? Go ahead and challenge your goals. You don't want to sit there and be reporting on your goals to your club saying we've done it already, and then no one else wants to step up. Go ahead and increase it a little. Let other people step up also.
And still with you, Marie, should I notify anyone if I change my goals?
If there's significant goals, I would tell your area governors or your foundation chair, just so that they know for their planning purposes, especially if it's a significant increase or decrease. It's helpful for them to know that.
Cool. Thank you very much. Back to you, George. The Rotary Action was championed by our current RI president. Will it be continuing when Mario takes over?
Oh, great question, David. Semi-Rotary political. Yeah, there's an awful lot of conversation at the moment about continuity and, with 3-year plan setting for all districts, etc., etc. So continuity is important. Having said that, obviously, presidents come in and they do change things a little bit from time to time. So what I can say is that whilst Mario hasn't made it a centerpiece for the year ahead, the Rotary Action Plan won't go anywhere. It was created in 2018 and has been around, and it's still, no matter what, it's almost like the new 4-way test or a second 4-way test that we can actually use in the way that I've suggested tonight, asking ourselves, how do we do those things? Because they're very far-reaching questions. Having asked those questions and created goals, that doesn't go away just because the leadership has changed. This will still be around. Whether it'll be as promoted as vociferously as it has been over this year, I can't say that, but that's above my pay grade. But what I can say is it's not going anywhere. It'll still be there to be used, and I would recommend its use because it's a very useful tool.
Well, George, I'd have to say there's really nobody above your pay grade, okay? So, Marie, back to you, and this may be our last question. Why do I need to do this before PETS, President-elect training?
Well, when you go to President-elect training, they are going to ask you some of these goals. And if you've gone through this practice with your board and your members are ready, you're not going to go to PETS and be blindsided that you need to have a goal. But it also helps you plan for your Rotary year itself and helps you have a very successful year as your club president.
Thank you very much. And I'd really like to thank all three of the panelists here with George and Kay and Marie for giving us some really good insight on the different areas that you both talked, or you all three talked about. And with that, I would like to set an action item out for everybody that's on this call. Basically, one action item is please go put goals in Rotary Club Central. And with that, I'd like to turn it back to the Master of all ceremonies, Bernie Rydell.
Thanks, Dave. I'd like to give a big thank you to each of our speakers this evening. They each shared some valuable ideas for your club. You'll receive an email with a link to the recordings of tonight's webinar. The recordings of all past webinars can be found on the RI Zones 33-34 website on the Foundation Matters drop-down box. Our next webinar will be a special session to summarize the strategies and tips shared on the Foundation Matters webinars held this year. As usual, we will share them in bite-sized chunks of field-tested ideas for your club. As you exit the webinar, please provide your feedback on the quick pop-up survey. Your ideas will be included in our discussions about future webinars. Thank you again for joining us. This concludes our webinar. Have a great evening, everyone.